Hello, MegapieMan here, video maker. I'll be doing some audio commentary for this video and...
Wait, not yet. This is just an attention grabber. The video hasn't really started yet. We still gotta run the intro.
What now?
Hang on, let me check. Just read this line.
Alright then. We're taking a quick peek at the Deadly Tower of Monsters. Fueled by a love for old science fiction, Ace Team and Atlas put just about every 60s or 70s B-movie and TV show they could find into a blender. What came out was the Deadly Tower of Monsters. The aesthetic, the design, the music, and even the voice work all pay homage to those films and shows. Things like Land of the Lost, Buck Rogers, Planet of the Apes, and Forbidden Planet. They all make their references throughout the game either being prevalent in the game itself or being part of a story told by the director. Deadly Tower of Monsters doesn't play things straight as a game, but instead sets itself up to be an old sci-fi film called The Deadly Tower of Monsters. The entire film you're playing is the new DVD release, complete with director commentary. Dan Smith, director extraordinaire, and his interviewer Patrick will be chiming in from time to time, adding behind-the-scenes stories and information as you climb your way up this seemingly infinite tower. Their presence is mostly played off for comedy, as Smith points out costume choices and location design. Things get fairly clever at times, to the point of incorporating strings on flying enemies, as well as stop-motion dinosaurs and monsters.
Some really top-notch stop-motion effects, huh? Unfortunately, we skimped on the Dick Starspeed puppet a little.
It's doubtful that Ace Team used real stop motion for these characters, but the effect that they've done to make them appear stop motion looks like something straight out of an old Sinbad movie. It's really well done. There's even a part where Smith mentions touching the camera lens and fingerprints appear on the screen. Ace Team put a ton of love and effort into pulling off the B-movie feel, but there's more to the Deadly Tower of Monsters than just looks, as it's not really a film, but instead a video game. About 90% of the game takes place from an isometric perspective, only changing here and there for scripted events or interior spaces. This was a very smart move on Ace Team's part, since it really helps give a grand scale to the tower itself, raising higher and higher as you climb. The game is filled with narrow catwalks and platforms you can jump across, so you're constantly reminded of how high up you are, and just how much progress you've made. Some of the game's combat helps this out even more. There are two different types of combat in the Deadly Tower of Monsters. You have your ground combat, where you get access to 4 different weapons at a time, 2 melee and 2 ranged, and beat the snot out of any costumed stuntmen who get in your way. But there's also edge combat. Deadly Tower of Monsters has a wide assortment of weapons to collect, but you've only got one gun to deal with enemies that are below you. It can only be used if you're next to an edge of the tower, or if you're in freefall, and it's non-upgradable unlike every other weapon in the game. Still, it can easily get the job done as long as you're paying attention. Any enemies you miss, you'll have to use ground combat mechanics to deal with if they reach your level in the tower, so it's best to try to take them out quickly before you become overwhelmed. If Deadly Tower of Monsters has anything, it's enemy variety. Ace Team went all out with their monster designs, and there are tons of them. Dinosaurs, ape men, lizard people, squid monsters, slime monsters, nuclear ants, robots, robot ninjas, puppies wearing vacuum cleaners, the list goes on. Anything a film crew could have possibly got their hands on to make a monster out of, Ace Team used. And the main thing about them is how they can interact with each other. Enemies have friendly fire and will harm each other if you can trick them into doing it. Bosses can accidentally kill their minions, and enemies like squids have a psychic ability to curve bullets around them. If done correctly, you can use this to hit other enemies, even around corners. The game also takes place on a tower, so you can use height to your advantage to knock enemies off the edge, killing them instantly. Combat in the Deadly Tower of Monsters can be a lot of fun, even though it's fairly simple. Every weapon has 2 attacks, one for just pressing the attack button and a charge attack for holding the attack button. You would think that this would quickly get boring, but thanks to enemy variety and how often you pick up weapons and abilities, things constantly stay interesting. You can also dodge roll out of the way of attacks and perform a parry attack if you time things correctly, though I never really found much of a need for it. Deadly Tower of Monsters has 18 weapons overall, 10 ranged and 8 melee. Ranged weapons can be upgraded once and melee weapons can be upgraded twice, each time becoming more powerful. There's not a huge variety of weapons, but there's enough that I had my favorites when playing the game. You've got anything from a basic laser pistol to a great sword to a poking stick or a tuning fork that will shock enemies. There's even a frog gun that shoots homing flies. Old B, C, and D level sci-fi films were known for using whatever they could get their hands on, and that's no different here. The only thing that I found kind of lacking with the game's combat were character abilities. There are a total of 3 characters to play as. The hero, Dick Starspeed, the Emperor's daughter, Scarlet Nova, and a robot called the Robot. Even though the game has 3 playable characters, you can only play as one of them at a time, and there isn't any kind of local or online co-op feature. Co-op would have been nice to see, as pretty much everything is better with friends, but I do feel that Deadly Tower of Monsters has a strong enough single player to hold up on its own. Characters you aren't playing as aren't used as AI partners or anything like that either. Instead, they're put in a sleep chamber. That is, unless they're needed for a cutscene. Every cutscene in the game is made for a particular character, even if you're not playing as them. They'll pop up for the scene and then disappear again after it. I understand why Ace Team did this, since they would have had to have made every scene 3 times for all 3 characters, but it's disorienting to be playing as Scarlet one moment and then run into a cutscene that focuses on Dick.
Oh no! This head belonged to my co-pilot robot. He was the most loyal companion in the galaxy.
Dick. Malfunction. Dick. Malfunction.
These Gravorians will pay dearly for this, my friend.
Sleep chambers are the only way to swap characters. While they are plentiful, it can be annoying to have to backtrack and find one if you come across something that you need a specific character's abilities for. Everyone shares some of their abilities, but there are a few that are specific to each person or robot. Dick can dash and use mines to blow up rocks. Yes, they look like inflatable cubes, but I assure you, they are rocks. Scarlet can activate her shield or speed ability, and the robot can slow down time or send out a bolt of electricity. All of these abilities are useful for accessing new areas and secrets, and they can all be used in combat, although I never really found myself doing that all that often. Your basic combat with melee or ranged weapons is more than enough to deal with the game's plethora of enemies. Even bosses weren't too bad, as I only ended up having to fight the final boss more than once. Usually, if I was going to die, it was going to be to fall damage. Since the entire game is centered on climbing a tower with increasingly narrowing paths, you're probably going to fall off at least once or twice. Thankfully, there's a really cool mechanic called air teleporting that will send you back to the last safe ground you stood on. You also have a jetpack that you can use to slow your fall before you hit the ground so you don't, die.
Why did you film so many scenes of your actors dying anyhow?
Why? To throw off the press, of course.
Throughout the game, there's a good amount of collectibles to find and side missions to complete. These can be either gathering cogs to upgrade weapons or falling through a number of hoops. It can be fun to see what your weapons turn into and how they change when you upgrade them, but I never really found much of a need for completing side missions. Doing so will reward you with skill points you can use to upgrade your team, but I was already doing well enough with the game's basic combat and only upgrading a weapon here or there that I never really felt like I needed to go searching for skill points. Ace Team really used the tower's height to their advantage, as there are some collectibles and missions hidden away in areas you can only reach by falling down to them. No matter how high you are in the tower, you can always jump off the edge and skydive all the way down to the ground, which is a really fun way to incorporate backtracking. Got a new ability and remember somewhere you can use it? Just dive down to that area, get the collectible or finish the mission, then teleport back to the last checkpoint you activated. It's both simple and quick, plus there's just something calming about free-falling. These mechanics can't save you all of the time, however, as I did end up getting stuck at one point. The tower is on an island surrounded by water. Get too close to the water and you'll be eaten by a giant fish and respawn on the land near where you died. In this particular situation, I was stuck in a low area between a wall and the ocean. I didn't want to teleport to a previous checkpoint, so I tried to jump out of the area. Eventually, I got stuck so bad that I couldn't even open the teleportation menu and had to quit the game. Despite this and a few other things, I really enjoyed my time with the Deadly Tower of Monsters. Its dedication to the sci-fi B-movie aesthetic really makes it shine. While the game's combat is a bit lacking, the wide variety of weapons and enemies kept things interesting for me the whole way through. That and the dialogue between the director and Patrick. A's team was able to keep them constantly present without being annoying. While some of their comedy is hit and miss, I feel that it's really a unique concept and done rather well. To help make it feel more like a film from the 70s, the developers even included a VHS filter for the game. While it's nice for aesthetics and the game does recommend that you use it, I wasn't a big fan of it, and thankfully you can just turn it off. Even though the game could have used a little bit more polish and the camera can be a bit wonky at times, there really isn't anything much that I had a problem with for the Deadly Tower of Monsters. It's available on Steam for $14.99 and I feel that that's a good price for it. Not too expensive, but not too cheap either. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think about the game or this video in the comments section. I'm MegapieMan, and I'll talk to you guys later. Either do what the game lets you do, or you just don't play it. In between bits of story, as Elvin's life becomes constantly more self-important, while also becoming more and more complicated and dangerous, you can talk to people and explore the world around you.